Hello, everyone. Hello, Amy. How are you today?
I'm great, Pierre. How are you?
I'm great. I am really looking forward to this session. We are doing the Learn Live for AVS or Azure VMware Solution.
Yes, my favorite. I love Azure. I love VMware, so I'm really excited to be a part of this.
You're a V expert, right?
I think I have 6 stars. V expert for, or 5 stars. 5 times V expert and a few V certs, but yeah, got to get back into it.
Yep. Anyway, so if you guys are not familiar with the Learn Live, what we do is we look at a Learn module that is hosting on Microsoft Learn, and we basically go through it together. In this case, you can follow along on aka.ms/learnlive-2022-0301B. Not quite sure how the algorithm creates the names of these shortcuts, but Amy and I are going to go through this one, and this particular one is Introduction to Azure VMware Solution. So feel free to head over to that site, log into VMware, log into Azure Microsoft Learn, and read along with us. All right, so the Azure VMware Solution is really a service that's built in Azure to help you connect your on-prem environment to a single tenant private cloud in Azure. It's a way to allow you to migrate or to extend your capabilities from your on-prem environment to Azure. Today, in this Learn module, we'll learn about the business value, the use cases, basic components, and the options that you have for connectivity. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. So what is Azure VMware Solution? Azure VMware Solution is basically your environment running in the cloud. It's basically a VMware installation on bare metal running in an Azure data center that can be connected to your on-prem VMware environment, so that your application and your workloads can seamlessly transfer from one to the other. So you can use that when, for example, if you're in a scenario where your company's hardware lease is coming to an end, or your machines are end of life, or you've run out of capacity in your own data center, or want to shrink your data center, then you can extend your footprint to Azure using the Azure VMware Solution. So you are very familiar with all the tools because it's VMware. It's vSphere, it's vSAN, it's NXT. It's all of the same things that you run on-prem, except that you now run them in the cloud. And really, it is running VMware natively. It's not an nested virtualization. It's literally VMware running in our environment. So when you're looking at your on-prem environment where you've got your vCenter, your vSphere, vSAN, NSX, everything, it connects to a single tenant in Azure, and using the Azure Resource Manager, either through the portal or through Azure CLI or Azure or PowerShell, you can deploy in that private cloud infrastructure a mirrored or a similar environment running Azure VMware Solution. So vCenter, vSphere, vSAN, NSX, and any other third-party DR solutions that you may have to fail over or to protect your workloads in Azure. However, once you've got this, you can then connect them to native Azure services. The way this is architected, one of the great value proposition is you can keep your existing investment. So if you've invested a lot of time and a lot of energy and money into developing and building this infrastructure that you have on-prem, all of this investment is not wasted. We're not asking you to to toss it and to move to something else. You can extend that investment into Azure. Your operations stay consistent. So the way you deploy workloads, the way you manage them, the way you back them up, all of the operational parts of your admins stays exactly the same. Also, for your business, because your licensing stays the same, everything else stays the same. You don't have to change the way your business runs because you're going from VMware to VMware. You get a single point of support, which is really, really cool. The single point of support, you call Microsoft because we're hosting it. So you call Microsoft. Yes. What?
I said they can call Pierre.
No, they don't call me. Don't call me. Then they call Amy down here. But you call Azure support, and then if need be, we'll bring in the VMware engineers to help you with your problems. You avoid licensing complexity because it's in the cloud, so you pay as you go. And really, the cool thing is that if you have Azure Hybrid benefits, your licenses, for example, Microsoft Windows or Microsoft SQL Server licenses may be covered if you have your Azure Hybrid benefits enabled. So this is really cool. Once you've got that set up, though, you do now have access to include all of the native Azure services into your environment. So you can connect things like Azure Monitor, you can connect things like Azure Stream Analytics or Azure Search or any other of the Azure services that we have in our portfolio of offerings. You can apply those to your workloads because they're already on Azure. So connecting to those workloads becomes very, very easy.
Definitely. Azure Sentinel, blob storage.
Exactly. Sentinel,
Goes on and
storage,
on.
security.
Yeah.
I think there's probably over 500 different little services. Some are
Right.
really big, some are small, but very valuable things that you can easily integrate into your environment.
Yeah, I think that's like what you said earlier. It's like you get your VMware environment and you still get to use all your your backup capabilities, your third party, if you're using NetApp. And then you also get closer to those services. So you're just enhancing your environment.
Yeah. And I like the way you're thinking, because if you can bring in your own stuff, you've already learned it, your staff is already up to date on them. But if you don't, like how many smaller shops don't have DR capabilities, for example?
Right.
Now
we
there are.
pretend when
Pardon?
when I was at a small company, we'd pretend we had DR. It was just kind of, go to
You
the
had
other
a
side.
DR, you had a DR plan that was as good as the paper was written on?
Right, exactly. Throw your
Yeah.
hands up and scream. Yeah.
Is that a plan?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so let's see if we've covered some of the knowledge that I was hoping to bring in.
Let's
So
see.
first question, do you want to read this one?
Sure. So which of the following features is key to Azure VMware Solution? Would it be A, customers can seamlessly modernize apps over time with Azure services? B, customers manage all components of Azure VMware Solution? That does not sound fun. Azure VMware Solution is the fastest way to force someone to move off an Azure-centric operational processes. So,
Okay, I'm gonna be off the table right now because I don't think we want to. We never want to force anybody to change their business for sake of technology, right?
No.
Okay,
We're
so
not
it's either
forced.
A or B.
Yeah, and I think part of being on the Azure VMware Solution is so you don't have to manage. It's supposed to be a feature.
Yeah,
That
it's
you're
kind of
not
like the pizza as a
upgrading.
service.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So let's guess
So
A.
you think it's A? All right, let's
Yeah.
see if it's A. And
Whoa,
yes, it
we did
is
it.
A. Ooh, 5 points for me. Um,
and a cookie for me.
and a cookie. Oh, I'm jealous of the Girl Scout
Girl
cookies.
Scout cookies.
Which native Azure service can be integrated with Azure VMware Solutions to provide VMware Center SSO identity, single sign-on identity? Is it A, Azure Databricks, B, Azure Monitor, or C, Azure Active Directory?
Well, I would think it's one of those services you mentioned that, you bring your environment in and then you're closer to Azure Active Directory to log in would be my.
Yeah, well, Azure Databricks, I think, is for storage.
Yeah.
So storage and SSO, not necessarily the same providers.
No.
Azure Monitor would probably kind of keep track of who's logging in and who's logging out, but won't be providing it.
Yeah, it won't give you single sign-on.
No. So I think it be Azure Active Directory. Let's see if we're right. And we are. Wow. I'm so impressed with our so now we've taken a quick look at what Azure VMware Solution is. I think, Amory, it'd be great if you could actually take us through how it works.
Sure. Okay, so how Azure VMware Solution actually works. Let's see. There we go. As we mentioned earlier, it's that shared support model, kind of that pizza box that we were saying, the take and bake versus making your own. So Microsoft handles the configuration of the physical infrastructure. We handle physical security, monitoring the data centers. And then also any hardware failures. I actually got an alert on my own environment saying, your host is, there's issues with it. We're going to remediate it for you. And nothing happened. It was seamless. It was great. So yeah, Microsoft pretty much handles all the hardware components, the patching, the stuff that you probably don't have fun doing anyways. So, and then the customer, you get to customize your OS and your apps, your VMs, and configure vCenter, but everything else is pretty much locked down because to maintain that security and that hardware profile for your environment.
So basically, we're abstracting all of the like day-to-day boring work and allowing the customers to focus on what's important.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Oh yeah, I used to be a VMware admin, and patching was not fun. Like roll a patch, maintenance mode, roll a patch, maintenance mode. This you don't have to worry about it. So Microsoft has it all ready for you. We monitor again for issues. So they'll add a host to your cluster and remove the naughty host, and your life is good. So
good, cool.
Yeah. And then, so like I mentioned, so the monitoring and remediation. So any like high CPU or high memory or any issues with the network or power, we're going to take care of that for you.
What if it's one of your application that is like one of your workload that is basically pinning the CPU of one of your VMs? Is that something that we take care of, or is that something that you take care of?
No, that would be on the customer end. I would highly recommend Azure Monitor, or there's also vCenter Operations Manager to alert you on that. But yeah, you would be still responsible for your application, but we would we're monitoring the hosts themselves. I'm sure if one VM was causing an issue and causing the host to fail, then we'd have to take action.
Okay.
So that being said, private clouds, clusters, and hosts in Azure. Oh my. So I just like that title. You need a minimum of 3 nodes in a cluster. And that's pretty much on par with if you have vSAN, you need 3 hosts to have a vSAN cluster. If you want to have a production cluster, you need 3 hosts. So the bare minimum is 3 hosts. You can have 16 nodes in a cluster. And then the max is 12 clusters and an Azure private cloud. So then you can have 96 nodes, which is quite a lot because these are big beasts of a machine. So
yeah, well, your 3 nodes in a cluster. I remember my days as a consultant doing a lot of DR work for companies, and we always had the N+2 model of how many in order to have redundancy. Because if you
Right.
have two, if you have one, you have no redundancy. If you have two, you have partial redundancy, because if one fails, then you no longer have redundancy.
Hmm.
Three is the minimum, because if you can lose one and still have redundancy.
Right. It definitely depends on how much you overcommit, but yeah, 3 is definitely a good way to go.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So as of now, AVS, we run 6.7 update 3 version of vCenter and ESXi. Same for the NSX version, or NSXT, sorry, that's for AVS specific. And then HCX is 4.1. So that's locked in. You can't change that because this is the service we're providing. Once they roll out the next version, this will change.
What if you have a different version on prem? What happens then?
Well, I mean, honestly, it depends. So I've seen
The consulting answer?
exactly depends. What version are you running, and what are you planning to do with your workload? So it's a more of a complicated question.
Right.
I've seen where you might have to upgrade if you're behind, but if you're ahead of it, you just have to match your VM hardware version to the VMware hardware version on the AVS solution,
Okay.
and you should be good to go.
Okay. Perfect.
So, and then the interconnectivity in the solution. So we use ExpressRoute, but you can also use a VPN connection. It's not really, there's no SLA for that, but it's a good way to at least maybe get started, or using the Azure virtual WAN.
Well, I think the VPN connection, the reason why there's no SLA is because this is outside of our control, because you're using public internet infrastructure to
Mm,
connect to a VPN gateway. So the VPN gateway can be up, but if there's a failure anywhere else in the chain in the public internet, we can't be responsible for that. So Express Route is definitely the more robust
yes,
connection type. Or if you even have a express route to one location that is connected to the Azure backbone, then you can actually piggyback over the Azure virtual WAN to connect to your region where your VMware solution sits.
exactly. So this is just like a little image showing that ExpressRoute connectivity, and if you're going to use like complete on-premises connectivity, like migrations, vMotion, then you would use global reach on your ExpressRoute as well.
Okay.
And you can see like you have the um, edge routers directly connected in the data center. So edge to edge routers to give you that backbone, that really fast connectivity. And then, like we mentioned earlier, you're in the private cloud, but now you're closer to these storage services, Azure Files, Blob Storage, NetApp, Azure File Sync. And you get to use that Azure backbone that's wicked fast to connect to these services versus a VPN.
Yes. Connecting to storage across a VPN connection is always slower than connecting to something that's on the same fiber than your hosts are.
Right, exactly. So we also have security and compliance. It's always important at Microsoft. So you have your RBAC roles with vSphere. You can have admin, cloud admin, and then we do data encryption at rest using provider managed keys, and it doesn't impact the vSAN at all with the encryption. So we encrypt at the storage level. We have encryption keys using was it the Azure Key Vault
Yep.
system, and then your RBAC controls. So you're pretty secure.
Cool.
Yeah. And this is a great slide. But so local cloud admin can link your Active Directory to your AVS. And this is important because the spelling of cloud admin so lowercase cloud admin can link your identity source, Active Directory. And in AVS, administrators don't have access to the administrator account. They can, however, assign Active Directory users to the cloud capital admin role on vCenter. Not confusing at all. So, reading the third bullet point. clusters hosted. Might have to edit this out because
Yeah, I'm just taking a note here.
okay. Okay, so just private cloud. I think I would just kind of skip that bullet point. I don't know. Okay.
Well, do you have a good understanding? Because I don't.
Not of the private cloud user doesn't have access to and can't configure.
So the local cloud admin user can link an identity source so that Active Directory administrators can grant permissions to users of Azure Solution.
AVS.
In this solution deployment, the administrator doesn't have access to the administrator user account. The admin can, however, assign Active Directory users and groups to the roles.
Okay, so local cloud admin can link Active Directory to use AVS, but the actual admin of AVS can assign.
Can basically pick users and groups that are in Azure Directory and assign them rights inside the AVS solution.
Yeah. Okay.
So the local cloud admin actually makes the link with Azure Active Directory, and then the and then the cloud admin with the big A can use those identity from Azure Active Directory and assign them to roles and access within the within vCenter.
And I think that third bullet point is about the local cloud admin. It can't do anything except set up that identity source. Looks like
the private cloud user doesn't have access to and can't configure specific management computer at that Microsoft supports. Yeah, because it's like the pizza as a service. Anything below what we were allowed, what we configure versus what you are responsible for, that private cloud user doesn't have any access to that. So you can't go and change your configuration of your nodes, your hardware nodes.
Hardware. Okay.
So your hardware, your components are like the clusters, the host, the data stores, and the distributed virtual switches. You can't control that.
Okay. Makes sense. All right.
Okay.
Should I go back and then or?
You can just start at it because I'll cut at the right place.
Okay. So security and of course not. So security and compliance. There's an account, the local cloud admin, that you can link your Azure Active Directory admin. You can link the source so your admins can grant permission to use AVS. So this is important to remember later. Because in AVS, the administrator doesn't have access to the administrator user account, but they can assign Active Directory users, assign users and groups to access the cloud admin role on vCenter in order to do things, because that local cloud admin user you can't modify the distributed switches or the hosts. I mean, again, we have everything locked down for you. So you would grant permissions through Azure Active Directory.
So the first account, so the cloud administrator, the cloud admin with the little a, actually makes the link to Azure Active Directory, and then the cloud admin with the big A actually uses the identity stored in Azure Active Directory to assign access and roles within vSphere. Did I get that right?
Kind of. The cloud capital A is a role on vCenter. So that's a role on vCenter, and you can assign people to that role. And that allows people to do, create VMs and
that makes more sense to me. Yeah. Okay.
And then I'll just briefly go over this because we have other modules that go in depth. But, obviously before deploying, you need to plan. You assess your environment with maybe Azure Migrate or vRealize Operations Manager. You have to request quota, put in a ticket in Azure, and then we'll go through the steps for registering the resource provider, creating the, deploying AVS, making sure your express routes are connected so you can use HCX and so forth. So
yeah, and it's good that you're mentioning it, especially the one about ExpressRoute, because ExpressRoute
Mhm.
doesn't. It's not like an on-demand type of service. You actually have to deal with your local telco provider or
Yeah.
whoever is giving you your access, the local provider for ExpressRoute. So they actually have to like either set up hardware or set up MPLS
Yeah.
segments to connect to your environment, to our environment. So you really need to plan this ahead of time, or else you have to basically wait until that's set before you have actually connection to your environment.
Yeah, you're pretty much waiting for the cable guy because yeah, you have to call. It's like
Between 8
well,
and 4.
well, it's like between 30 and 60 days, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't get it on the fly. Well, at least not that I'm aware of, but yeah, it's good to plan. Ooh, knowledge check. Dun, dun,
Knowledge check.
dun.
Did we get everything?
I hope so. Let's see. All right. What component of Azure VMware Solution is the customer not responsible for? Well, we have tier one gateways. We have the lifecycle management, the fun patching and installing software on VMware, ESXi, vCenter, and your vSAN, or virtual machines. I don't know,
Well,
Pierre.
I don't think that we're responsible for your virtual machines.
Oh, come on. That's not fun.
And the tier one gateways, I'm not sure if that's something that we take care of as well.
Yeah, because I mean, the customer gets to modify those to set up like east-west routes and everything to the environments. So I would go with B. I think you're thinking B, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. Oh, yeah! We need like fireworks that go. You did it!
I did it. All right. Okay, so next question.
All right.
Make sure that we have it right. So Shannon wants to start migrating to Azure VMware Solution.
Smart
What
person.
minimum number of nodes must Shannon have to get started?
Well, we kind of drilled this into people's heads, I think.
I think we
Minimum.
did.
I mean, if we made you a minimum of 24 nodes, that'd be kind of crazy. 16.2, that's pretty crazy and expensive. But 3 sounds good because
3 sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't have that much guess on that one. I think
Yeah, that was like
I pretty much knew which one we were talking about.
right. I still feel smart. Hey.
That's right.
Ooh, the tricky question, capital A admin. So what does the cloud admin role, the one on vCenter, and the Azure VMware Solution vCenter do? So we talked about the local cloud admin user setting up the link in Active Directory.
Mm-hmm.
The cloud admin role creates and manages workloads in your private cloud. No, that's the role in vCenter. So, and then C, the cloud admin role has access to the ESXi host in Azure.
Well, we've already stated earlier that you don't have access to the actual hosts in Azure because that's something that Microsoft manages, right?
Right.
Pizza as a service type of deal.
Pizza as a service.
So is it the user set up users at Active Directory, or is it creates and manage workloads in your private cloud?
I believe it's B because it's the cloud capital A.
That's cloud capital A.
Not cloud lowercase a. Let's see. We got it right. Yeah. Try to trick us on that one. Yeah.
Swish.
See, that feels like a Cisco question. They always try to trick you.
Yes.
Spellings, capitalization. So good job.
All right.
We'll go on
now, if we're starting to look at when we use the VMware solution, on this one, I will have to say that I will give you the consulting answer. It depends. Because I'm not joking here. Each organization is at a different point in their cloud transformation, or whether it's even the cloud transformation. And everybody's unique into what they're looking to do. Like we mentioned earlier, are they looking to shrink their data center footprint because, I don't know, square footage, real estate has gone through the roof and they're going to double their cost if they stay with the data center they have?
Or
Is
you're
it because,
landlocked, can't
pardon me?
expand. Or you're landlocked, you can't expand, you're stuck and you need to grow
Exactly. So
more.
you
Yeah.
have this capacity need that you can't provide within what you have. So
Mhm.
there are different ways or different times as to what when people want to jump onto the Azure VMware solution. So it really is depends on each of your organization's state and what your end goals are.
Mhm.
But we can say that there's really four main areas. So, because you want to migrate as is. And I've known customers that have just said, I'm not in the business of managing data centers and I want nothing to do with that part. I'm in the business of managing the workload so that I can
Mhm.
make money with my customers. So they want to migrate everything.
Right.
Some, as we mentioned, to reduce their data center footprint. Other is just to this, prepare for data disaster recovery, because
Sure.
in a lot of cases, if you're doing a disaster recovery with your business, you need a site B, like
Those
a
colos.
literal data disaster recovery site.
Right.
If you have multiple data center, you can use site A as a recovery for site B and site B as a recovery for site A. So that's not too bad, but you still need more capacity.
Mhm.
If you only have one site, do you rent another site just for DR?
It's expensive too, and
That
it's,
gets
is it gonna be
expensive.
cold or
Uh,
warm site? Yeah.
you have the cold or warm, the connectivity in between. All of that needs
Yeah.
to be taken in consideration. So using a turnkey solution like Azure VMware Solution to set up an environment that you can easily fail over to
Mhm.
um, is a very cool position to be in. And modernize your workload. Now, modernize your workload. This is step one, because you're moving workloads from on-prem to Azure VMware Solution, but there's still VMs running in Azure on top
Mhm.
of VMware.
Mhm.
Because you have access to all of the Azure services that we mentioned, Azure Monitor, Azure Storage, all of the AI and other services that Azure can provide, you can start modernizing your application on your workload. But the fact of moving or migrating to Azure VMware Solution is like step one. You're
Yeah.
not yet taking care or taking advantage of the cloud native solutions, but you're that much closer to them so you can start leveraging them, and it buys you time.
Yeah, it's kinda like a lift and shift, but you're lifting your VMware environment to the cloud, and then after that, you can maybe refactor some web apps, use a service, things like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. So let's see whether or not we got it right.
Ooh, another knowledge check.
A knowledge check. So, which business need is best suited for Azure VMware Solution?
Let's see.
Is it enterprise that want to reduce their footprint?
Good
Or
use
is
case.
it organizations that don't want to use cloud services?
Does it make sense? No.
Does that make sense? I don't know.
Use the
Or is it
cloud.
use the cloud or don't use the cloud? Customers who don't want a fast path to the cloud by migrating as existing as assets as is.
Have to.
I don't think that one makes sense at all.
Yeah, because you're migrating as is.
You're migrating as is.
Yeah.
Uh, so you think it's A?
Mhm.
I believe it is. Let's check. It is
Yeah. High
2 points for Amy.
five. Awesome.
Next question.
Which scenario isn't a good option for Azure VMware Solution? Customers who can't move to cloud services. Well, that
That's
sounds
kind of a double
unfortunate.
negative.
Yeah. Cannot move to. B, customers who want to modernize with native Azure services. C, customers who want more disaster recovery and business continuity options with Azure. So
So which
not a
one
good
is
option.
not a good option?
So tricky question again.
So I would say A is not the good option because
Right.
Azure.
Well, I'm not forcing you.
It's kind of in the name too. It's Azure. You are
Right.
kind of using some cloud services.
Right.
So let's see if that was right.
Yay!
Yes.
You get the
And
2
we are.
points this time.
I get the 2 points this time.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's
You're
so
welcome.
nice. Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this quick session on introduction to Azure VMware Solution. As we mentioned at the beginning, aka.ms/learn live-2022-0301B is where you will find the actual Learn module. It has a bit more details. Amy and I kind of go back and forth and discuss what this is. But if you want to actually read all of the specifics and have the links to the documentation, I highly encourage you to go back and complete the interactive learning exercises and watch the videos and practice and just get some new skills.
And you get points too, right? You get XP.
That's right. You can compete with your friends through the Microsoft Learn and show how much better you are than them.
That's awesome. I'm smarter than you.
You're smarter than you. But if you've enjoyed this one, we have a few more coming in the very near future. So keep an eye on the next session where we prepare to migrate VMware workloads to Azure by deploying Azure VMware Solution.
Sounds good.
That was great. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Pierre.
And
fun.
for everyone, we'll see you online or at the next session.
Yeah.
Cheers.
All right.